should be used or should be utilized. So this is your responsibility as a sender. So as a sender, you have to send the messages the clearest way possible and the simplest way possible. Make sure these messages are simplified, and you also need to make sure that these messages are they should also be understandable, and that they should also be comprehensible. And you could do that if you're going to use methods of communication. And the best methodology to use is the face-to-face. You really have to do it in person, because if you're going to do it in person, we could avoid misunderstanding. Misunderstanding could not occur if it's face-to-face. It's all because you could always ask for clarification. You could always seek for clarification. Anyway, the person to whom you are talking to is in front of you. So since the person to whom you are talking to is in front of you, you could always ask questions. If there are some parts of the discussion that you do or conversation that you do not understand, then you could always ask the person in front of you. So these messages should really be simplified. So the best methods to use for the best methodology to use is face to face. So we could really avoid misunderstanding. The methods of communication must be simpler and precise when presenting valid information. So this could be compared to summarizing. When you summarize a text, it is considered to be the shortened version of the original text. So since it is the shortened version of the original text, what do you need to do is you have to eliminate the unnecessary data, and what do you need to take into account would be the most essential data, the most pertinent information, and the vital ones. Now once you have the vital information with you, what do you need to do? So you have to present this data. And if we are talking of PowerPoint presentation, guys, the slides should not be crowded and they should not be congested. It's all because if these slides are congested, then that could really be an eyesore on the part of the readers, and that could also be an eyesore on the part of the listeners. And since this since the said slides are crowded and congested, like the listeners would not listen to you anymore. So you also have to see to it that the presentations that you are using are also enticing, and that they should also be stimulating. So with that, with just a piece of advice, guys, the presentation acts as a guideline. It's just a mere outline of what you need to discuss. So it only simply means that it should not be the slides discussing the topic, and it should not be the presentation discussing what needs to be discussed. It should be you explaining the concepts. It should be you explaining the terminology. So therefore, it should only be the most important information that you have to include in the presentation. And you could always present this data, you could always present this vital information by means of using bullets. So you could present the most important data, and you could present this information, the most pertinent ones, by means of using bullet. You break them down, you enumerate them, you itemize them using bullets. Like with the previous discussion, we had the different communicative styles. We have frozen. So you should have one bullet for frozen, its definition, and then at the bottom of the slide is that you could provide examples. So for the next slide, you would have the second bullet. For the second bullet, what would you have would be formal and its definition, and then same as true at the bottom of the slide is that you should also have the examples. So it's only the vital information that you have to present. What you need to take into account should only be the most important and most pertinent information. Good communication is what separates a poor leader from an exceptional one. So a vital characteristic that distinguishes an exceptional leader from a poor leader is the ability to communicate with transparency and compassion. So you have to be transparent. What you see is what you get. It's good to be true, as they say. And when you talk to your employees, when you talk to your colleagues, as a leader and as a superior, as the boss, you always have to show sincerity. You really have to make it sound real. You really have to make it sound genuine, and it should really be something authentic. Make sure that you are not just faking it. And another expectation from you as a leader is that you are considered to be a good leader if you possess effective and if you possess exceptional communication skills. If you have good speaking skills, then you may also consider yourself a good leader because it's all because if you possess such characteristic that you have good speaking skills as a leader, you could overcome challenges. You could overcome obstacles. You could also possibly reach the goals, the organizational goals or the goals of the company. And in addition, if you have good speaking skills, excellent speaking skills, then you could also make the company grow. You could also make the organization succeed. And that what separates a good leader from a poor leader. Having effective communication skills is the key to good relationship. Why is it that Barack Obama, despite of his color, we really have to accept the fact and admit the fact that racial discrimination exists in America, racism exists in America. But despite of that, despite of his color, Barack Obama still he was able to win the presidency and he was able to win the presidential election. You know what is his key? You know what is his advantage? His advantage was his ability to talk, ability to speak with fluency, and he possessed exceptional and extraordinary communication skills, and that is coupled with the power of speech and power of persuasion. They always say if you have the power of speech coupled with good speaking skills, then nothing is possible. You could even make impossible possible, and that you could even make history. You could even introduce changes, and you could move even mountains. So who would ever thought that a Black American would lead the country and a Black American would lead United States of America. Okay, I want you to remember that, guys. So if you have excellent communication skills and power of persuasion, you could move even mountains. So it's time for us to discuss the different methods that you could use in disseminating information in the workplace and in communicating in the workplace. So let us check what do we have. So for the first one, we have open meeting. Open meeting is also known as open forum. In this kind of way, they will hear what you say and get their feedback in return. So meetings are vital part of the company. They are considered to be integral part of the company. For a certain company to function, once in a while, meetings are held. And once in a while, meetings are conducted. So they could be group meetings, they could be department meetings, they could be general meeting, and they could also be emergency meeting. And if it's emergency, it means it's something that is urgent. So it needs immediate attention as well as action. And with open meetings, with open forums, as an employee, you are given the voice. You are given the privilege and the opportunity to voice out what you know. You are also given the chance to share your input. You are also given the chance to have your suggestions and commentaries. Yes, we know you might be the superior, you might be the boss, you might be the supervisor, the manager, and you might be one of the CEOs and the executives. But remember, guys, no matter how intelligent you are, it doesn't really mean that you know anything and everything about the company. Sometimes you also have your flaws, and sometimes you also have your mistakes. And in order for you to accept that, there should really be acceptance. One way of accepting that is by means of accepting the ideas of your employees, by means of accepting the ideas of your subordinates. Who knows, these subordinates might give you brilliant ideas that you do not expect. Who knows, these subordinates might also give you exceptional ideas that you also do not that you also do not uh, that you also do not expect. And you know what, guys? The stability of the company, its status, how how the company is, how is it going, is it doing good, is it doing great. You could also know that, or you could also determine that if you will also engage a conversation with your employees. And upon having a conversation with them, you also tend to know their needs as an employee. Like you're having the realization as the boss that I didn't realize that my subordinates and that my people need this and that. And you've only learned about that when you conducted the meeting. Next is we also have emails. Using emails requires less effort in communication in a workplace, which is very true. Like there's no need for you to send the file and the document personally. Like there's no need for you to ask a favor from the messenger. Hey, Mr. Messenger, I want you to send the document. I want you to send the said file to someone working in the to someone working in other companies. So there's no need for you to do that. There's no need for you to ask such favor because anyway, you could always send the file and you could always send the document anytime, anywhere, as long as you have their respective addresses, email addresses. It could be personal and it could also be a corporate email addresses. So once you have their respective email addresses, you could always send the file to them 24/7, anytime, anywhere. You could also get in touch with them any time of the day, and you could also contact them any time of the day. That is because you have their respective emails. And with emails, we could also save time, we could save money, we could also save resources, and we could even save our efforts. Why is that so? Like if it's a hard copy, if you need to send it one by one, you have to use, if there are 200 employees in the company, then you have to use 200 sheets of bond paper. And like if you're just going to send it via email, it would be a soft copy. And since it would just be a soft copy, there's no need for you to print it out. Another is that emails also offers us flexibility. It offers us convenience. It offers us convenience because we don't really have to meet the person one by one. Like if you're going to furnish him or her a copy of the email, there's no need for you to meet the said individual in person. So you could just ask for his or her email address. So it means we are not just talking of one individual here. We're not just talking of a single individual here, but we are also talking of hundreds and thousands of individuals who act as the recipient of the email. And that is really more convenient on our part because we don't really have to meet these hundreds and thousands of individuals one by one in person. All we need is their email. And emails are for free. They are low cost and low maintenance. What do you need to do is that you should only have your email addresses with you and you only need to remember your password and that's it. Next is, aside from emails, we also have one-on-one. You got to understand their ideas without a prior hindrance. Like there is a conflict between two of the subordinates, like they are fighting over something, they're having their argument. Then as the boss, you have to address the issue and you really have to solve the conflict. And one way of solving it is that you have to talk to them one by one. So it would really be man to man. In the Department of Education, particularly for public school teachers like us, we have what we call classroom observations, or which we call as CO, and we should complete 4 COs in a year. So that is from first quarter until fourth quarter, one for first quarter. And when we are having the classroom observation, you could see the superiors, the heads, like the principal, the master teacher, and the head teacher. They are observing us on how we facilitate the lesson, how we execute the lesson, and how we deliver the lesson. So right after the classroom observation, we have what we call post conference, and that would be one-on-one. The master teacher discussing my strongest points, my strengths and my weaknesses. Same as true with the master teacher and the principal. And I really find post conferences helpful and beneficial. I really find them helpful and beneficial because as a teacher, you know what to improve and you know what to enhance. Like this serves as my weaknesses, this serves as my great areas, So what am I going to do with this gray, with this gray areas raised by my subordinates? So it means I really have to work on them. And if I'm going to work on this gray areas, that could lead to better performances, and that would also lead to improvement and development. So it shows that I could grow personally from this critics and from the criticisms, from these weaknesses, and I could also grow professionally as well. Use simple words. Use a word that can be easily understood. So we've discussed earlier that you are not there to impress, but you are basically there to express. So since your main goal, you have to bear in mind your main goal. Your main goal and your main purpose is to send the message across the simplest way possible and the clearest way possible. So for you to be able to do that, use simple words. Use simple terminologies. Refrain from using technical terms. High polluting words, high sounding words. Do not make things complicated for others. If you could simplify it, then do so. So you are basically there to express, not to impress. So I am reminded of the acronym KISS, which stands for Keep It Short and Simple. Use visuals. They should not just hear the message, but also see it, which is very true for learners like you. You just don't really want to listen to the teachers. When you listen, you also wanted to see what the teacher is discussing. And you are fortunate enough, 21st century learners like you are fortunate enough because what is inculcated in your curriculum is the ICT. So there is inculcation of ICT. Unlike before, during the old days, as teachers, as long as we have the chalk, then we could really make the discussion moving forward. Aside from the chalk, as long as we have the Manila paper and as long as we have the pencil pen, that could also make the discussion going. But it's entirely different as of today. Part of the discussion would be videos from YouTube, videos downloaded from YouTube. So we use short clips, we use YouTube videos as part of the discussion, and it's not the Manila paper and the pencil pen anymore that we use as of today. We use Canva, we use Adobe, and we also use PowerPoint presentation. And this could also be applied in the corporate setting, like if you will be asked to present or you are having company presentation, and part of the company presentation is that you were asked to discuss a report. Like for instance, it's annual sales report of the company. So aside from the numerical data, or should I say, how will you present now the numerical data since we are talking of the sales output of the company? So how will you present this numerical data? How will you present this numerical figure? You could present this data, you could present this statistical or numerical data by means of using graph. You could use graph, you could use you could also use, aside from graph, you could also use tables. Aside from using tables, you could also use diagrams. You could also use charts if you want to. Like if it has something to do with the sales of the company, then one of the visuals that you could use could be the bar graph. The taller the graph or the taller the bars are, it means that the company is doing good because sales is continuously increasing. It's already high. On the other hand, the shorter the bars are, the board of trustees and the board of directors should really be alarmed because it shows that the sales is continuously deteriorating. It declines and it decreases. So therefore, the board of trustees really need to provide solution to the same problem. So what I just want you to realize, guys, is that when you are being asked to present or when you're having your company presentations, do not just use letters, do not just use words, do not just use sentences and paragraphs. You could also use pictures, images, photos, tables, graph, and any other graphic organizers that is appropriate to your presentation. Use body language. It is easier and faster to communicate using body language without using much of an explanation because your body and facial expressions says it all. Less talk, less mistake. It's just very true. Even in the corporate world, this also applies. If you could zip your mouth and if you could seal it, then do so, so you will not get into any kind of trouble. And when the verbal messages contradict, if it contradicts, if the two are in contradiction, verbal and non-verbal messages, I tend to believe non-verbal cues because actions could not lie. They could not really lie. Unlike with verbal messages and with spoken words, they are deceptive. Deceptive in the sense that we didn't even detect, we didn't even sense that he's telling a lie because most of the liars are good speakers. And since they are good speakers, you don't have any idea that these individuals are even telling a lie. Unlike with body language, unlike with facial expressions, you could never fake them. You could never fake your actions. It's just like if you really wanted to know if a certain individual is telling a lie, then you should really rely on his actions and that you should really rely on his body movements. And that's the reason why, guys, you better think twice. If your partner keep on telling you that he loves you, but then again he couldn't really look at you straightly into the eyes and he could not really establish eye contact, well, you'd better think twice because I guess there's something fishy and there's something wrong. Phone conversation. A person in a phone conversation can practice what they are going to say without seeing their facial expression. And this is particularly true for telemarketers and for call center agents. They are given the script. The script is provided and it's given, and all you need to do is to memorize it. And when you are being asked to memorize it, make sure it does not sound rehearsed. It should not sound rehearsed. Yes, I know that you were asked to memorize and to rehearse it, but still you have to make it sound realistic. And in the corporate setting, whether you like it or not, guys, you would really be asked to answer phone calls. Like if the receptionist is not around, on behalf of the receptionist, you will be assuming the role of the receptionist. In that case, when you answer phone calls, you have to do it with confidence. You have to do it with full confidence, and that you have to do it with the oozing confidence because the person on the other line could always discern. They could always determine whether you're tense and whether you're nervous. They could sense even an inch of nervousness, and they usually base it with the tone of your voice, and they usually base it with one's voice. In the corporate world, basic skills that you should learn is that you should also know how to operate and how to use the Xerox machine, the photocopier machine. You should also know how to use desktop and laptop. And one more thing is that you should also know how to answer phone calls, how to transfer phone calls as well, because when a certain company is known to be big, if it's too big, then there would be trunk lines. So if there are trunk lines, means there would be instances wherein you will be asked to transfer calls. So you should also know how to transfer calls. Aside from transferring calls, if there are clients, if there are customers calling the company, there would also be cases wherein you really have to put the clients on hold, and if that happens, you have to ask for permission if you could really put them on hold, because if you had put them on hold without asking for their permission, they would really become outrageous, they would really become fierce and furious. They might even yell at you because you didn't really ask for their permission. So whenever you put a client on hold, or the person on the other line, when you put him or her on hold, make sure you are asking and that you are seeking for permission. Like, I completely understand that you are upset, ma'am. So if I am on your shoe, if I am on their position, I would feel the same. So for me to be able to address your complaints, your queries and concerns, is it okay with you if I'm going to put you on hold for a minute, or I need to pull out your account? So you have to ask for permission. And one more thing, guys, this is also crucial, and you also need to remember this. You also need to remember this one. If it takes longer than usual, it means the maximum minute that you could put that you could put a client on hold is a maximum of a minute. Now, if you feel like you would exit with that you have to go back to the customer, get back to the customer, and inform the client and the customer that you need more minutes and that you need more time in pulling the account. I am very sorry, ma'am, for keeping you waiting, but I think you have to give me ample time and enough time. Could you please give me a few minutes or so I could pull out your account? I haven't difficulty pulling it out. So if it's okay, do you mind if I'm going to put you on hold for a few more minutes? So you really have to seek for permission. So guys, that is the end of today's discussion. I hope that you learned something from today's discussion. And today's discussion, I really find it helpful. I really find it helpful. It's all because you could really apply in real life setting and in real life situation the things that we have